to see the teddy bear are here to play. If you don't come play with.
Welcome to Frightened Female. This is Crystal. Today's story was submitted by Chris. Thank you so much for writing in. It definitely has a twist at the end. And with that, let's begin.
I was born in upstate Illinois. My parents and I were not far from a beautiful canyon that I used to explore, since I was an only child and had few friends in my town. One thing I especially loved was hunting quail and rabbit with my father every year. Even though my parents eventually divorced after I left home, I still made sure to go back and visit every year to go hunting with my dad. It was our tradition. Once I had turned 19, I left upstate to live in downtown Chicago. I always wanted to live in the big city, and I found a reasonably cheap apartment. It wasn't very fancy, and it was relatively small, but it suited me just fine. It was in a very tall building, and there were over 600 units in the complex. I was on the 10th floor. I pretty much kept to myself, aside from working, except for one acquaintance that, believe it or not, shared my same exact name. And this was because our first and last names were so common, it would be impossible for me to not meet another person that shared it. Ironically, he lived on the floor right below me, and I only got to know him because our postman was constantly mixing up our mail. So either he'd knock on my door with my mail, or I'd end up knocking on his door with his mail. It was annoying at first, but once in a while it was nice to see how he was doing. The man was a bit older than me, but not by much. He was huge in photography and was always showing me his latest photos that he had taken from around the city. He, too, lived alone, and I can tell that he appreciated my company. So, it was getting around that time of year to visit upstate. I couldn't wait to go hunting with my father. I had saved up enough money from working tables at the restaurant, and I really wanted to order a new hunting knife before I left. I went online and made my purchase. I rushed the shipping time because I was getting ready to leave in a few days, and I had already taken time off work. So, 3 days later, while making lunch in my kitchen, I received a knock at my door. "Cool, that's got to be my knife," I said. So I opened the door, and there was the postman with my package that I had to sign for, of course, and he also brought me my other mail with it. I thanked him for that, and then he left. I rushed back to the kitchen table and tore open the box. I was quickly confused. They didn't send me my knife. It was a soft cover book on ways to cope with severe depression. This is not what I ordered. I was very upset, seeing as how I was leaving the next day. It was the right company I ordered from, just the wrong product. I immediately called up customer service and was put on hold for quite some time, adding to my frustration. Finally, a service rep came on the line and asked how she could help me. I told her that I had ordered a knife and received a book instead, a book that I definitely didn't need. I gave her my order confirmation number that they had emailed me, and she was clicking away at her keyboard. She paused for a moment and said, "Mr. Johnson, our records show that the package was delivered yesterday, and it's already been signed for." "Impossible," I said. No one had come to my door the day before. So she assured me that I would receive a full refund plus shipping fees if I simply shipped the book back. So I agreed. It didn't matter, because I wasn't going to have the knife in time anyways. So I hung up the phone, and right as it did, it dawned on me. This package was probably for the man downstairs, And he must have gotten my knife thinking that it was his book. If it was delivered to him yesterday, why didn't he bring it up to me and apologize for opening it? Did he steal it? No, he wouldn't do that, I thought. And the irony that we both ordered something from the same online store was bizarre too. I feel bad that I had opened his package before thoroughly reading the address on it, but we've all opened mail by accident at one time in our lives. I was also embarrassed to tell him that, hey, I got this book on how to cope with your depression by accident. I had no idea he was struggling. Maybe the book wasn't for him. Who knows? Either way, I really wanted my knife, and it was worth it to make the trip downstairs. So, I knocked on his door. No answer. I knocked again. Still, no answer. Perhaps he was out for the day, taking pictures or something. I went back up to my apartment with his book and told myself that I'd check back later that evening. I didn't just want to leave the box outside of his door for fear of it getting stolen. So I did. I went back down at around 6 p.m. He had to be home by this time. And again, I knocked. No answer. I made multiple attempts, and I stood in the hallway for a couple of minutes. This all seemed really strange. Was he just not answering because he didn't want to give me my knife? A few scenarios went through my head. I left first thing in the morning, right before sunrise. I wanted to make one last attempt to knock on the man's door, just once more, but it was way too early to be disturbing anyone. I left and headed for upstate. Even though we only hunted for 3 days, I had a wonderful time with my father. We caught up on a lot of things, and I was happy to know that he was doing good. I had a long drive back home, and I certainly wasn't looking forward to going back to work. I arrived, got settled, and I unpacked a few things. I figured I'd worry about the book and the knife thing tomorrow because I was far too exhausted from the drive. And that evening, I had just sat down and went to reach for the remote when all of a sudden, I paused for only a second thinking, hey, maybe it's my downstairs neighbor. So I hustled to the door, opened it, and to my surprise, stood 2 Chicago police officers. Good evening, sir. Are you Chris Johnson? I said yes. What's the problem, officer? What they were about to tell me left me at a chilling loss for words. Oh, they found the man downstairs all right. Well, actually, a relative of his hadn't heard from him in days and went over to check on him. He had committed suicide and was lying on his bathroom floor. Both of his wrists had been slit all the way down with the knife that I had ordered. The cops knew to knock on my door because they found the package box with my unit number on it in the man's bedroom. The cops asked me a lot of questions, and I replied to all of them, explaining our constant mail mix-up and what I had done regarding the situation. And then it all made sense. The book about coping with depression just didn't reach the right person. And ironically, my online order led an unstable man to do the unthinkable. Thank you so much for submitting your story, Chris. If you have a true story of your own, I would love to share it. Please submit it to me. Just look at the description box below. Like and subscribe to my new channel. And remember, please be safe. Be aware of your surroundings. Most importantly, remember to always lock your door. Scary later.